Welcome in, everybody, to Basketball by Association. My name is Arky, Shea. That man in the background is Joel C. Cortez. No longer in the background. He's now coming to the foreground to say hello to you. Joel, hello.
Well, hello. Technically, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, I'd be on the side ground, wouldn't I? I don't think we do a foreground, background thing. I mean, unless this is like one of those band posters where Arky Shea is clearly out front, as it should be. I'm looking wistfully off into the background beneath the skyscrapers.
I think we need to make this like a buddy cop poster where we go back to back with our guns.
All right.
Voicing straight toward the sky. That's what I like.
Either that or you go the much overused comedy route where one of us has a look of exasperation or confusion on our face and the other one just looks, completely crazy, because that's the way every comedy poster works. You've got two people, one is unhinged and the other one is not happy about it.
Yeah, this cop plays by the rules. This cop is crazy, and they just happen to be partnered together. Hey-o! What's going to happen? I don't know, but you're about to find out over the next 88
both of our
minutes.
badges are going to get taken away within the first 25 minutes. That's what's going to happen.
Well, Joel, see, you're ruining the show before we get to it, okay? That's what happens the rest of this here podcast.
Speaking of ruining the show, I'm going to cut you off because this is episode 87 of Basketball by Association.
Rude.
And no player in NBA history has worn 87.
Good.
So we go to the year 1986-87. Magic Johnson was the MVP that year, but I believe we've had Sir Magic as a namesake of this episode. So I'm actually really excited about this one because if you are a late 80s NBA fan, early 90s NBA fan, you know this guy. And this is back when three-point shooting was a novelty. I mean, if you hit anywhere like 83s in a year, you were an absolute specialist. And this guy is one of the very early specialists in three-point shooting. He made his career around it, and he has one of the coolest nicknames of all time. Not only does it go with his name, but it also goes with his reputation of being a sniper from outside. This, my friends, is the Chuck Connors person.
Oh,
that's right, the Rifleman episode. And I think that's super cool. Chuck Person played 6 seasons with the Pacers. He actually logged 2 seasons with the Timberwolves during their early expansion days when they were not good. And he was one of the leading scorers in that first season that he played there with almost 17 a game. Played with the Spurs after that. That's how I know him a little bit more, is on the mid-90s Spurs when he was getting a little older. Wound up with the Seattle Supersonics at age 35 in the year 2000. So Chuck Connors person, who did score 20 points per game average in his 3rd season and was up in high double digits through most of the beginning of his career. Man knew how to get some buckets. I liked that. I dug the long ball even as a kid, and guys like this were heroes to me.
He also knows how to get bribes, as you may have read over the last couple of seasons, been in some federal bad water. Chuck Person, do you know where he played at?
I do, because I'm going to cheat. Right off the top of my head, I don't. Was he an Alabama guy?
Yeah, he's from Brantley, Alabama, I think.
That's right.
Yep. Chuck Person played at Auburn.
Auburn, yep.
Yep. So, by the way, making 80 or 93 is his game. Do you know what the record for threes right now in the NBA in a season is?
I know that the attempts is well over 300.
The most threes made in a season by a single player is 402.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, Steph's got 3 like top 4 for the top 5 or something like that.
I saw the infographic NBA on that the other day, and it's mind-boggling. You look at the first few seasons, and typically a guy was maybe hovering close to 100, and that was considered a really big deal.
Yeah, and
I should have said 300 on makes, not attempts. But
can you imagine the contract you would get making Chuck Person number of threes in a season? Like that's what Dennis Schroeder's getting right now when he failed to get the big $100 million contract that he forgot to sign or turned down to sign instead.
Right. I mean, that's what stretchy-ish centers / power forwards are expected to hit now.
Yeah. because that's what that's one a game, roughly, right? A little over one a game.
Yeah.
Joel, I just tweeted that we're about to record this here podcast, and I hope that by the end of it, we're not put in the health and safety protocol. Because Joel, for me, that's the biggest story in the NBA.
I was just in Chicago less than 48 hours ago, so I mean, it's entirely possible.
Okay, if you have 2 or 3 straight negative tests, I'm okay with it. By the way, but it has to. Can you show me the paperwork? Can you show me that? No, okay, that's fine. Itchy. That's fine. I'm trusting you. So the NBA in the last couple hours has said they are postponing the Bulls' next 2 games with the Pistons tomorrow night and with the Raptors on Thursday. Ironically, you're wearing a shirt of the Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt like there wasn't much of a choice. There was like 85 points a game that were in the COVID protocol right now for the Bulls. Like, how could you legitimately tell this team they had to put dudes on the floor to play, especially since, as we're seeing, every game is kind of important right now? It feels like you can't just tell those guys to just shove all the dudes onto the floor that you can, not even just from G League dudes, you're just putting on hardship waiver. This feels like the first time. This is the first time the NBA sort of had to do this since the bubble, to put a complete pause on like a singular team. So what does this say to you? Because it's not just the Bulls, Joel. There have been, over the last 10 days, especially, a ton of dudes found themselves in the COVID protocol. Like for example, RJ Barrett for the Knicks couldn't play last night. I don't know if it would have mattered against the Bucks, but COVID protocol. The Bulls, they're 200 dudes that are in the COVID protocol. Kyle Kuzma, COVID protocol. Precious Achua, COVID protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are just recent guys. There have been dudes ever since the beginning of the season. So, what does this say to you about the NBA so far?
Well, first of all kidding aside, you just hope that it's not serious cases for any of the Bulls or anybody else who's got it, that they're able to come back. Most NBA players have been able to jump right back in, although you do have different cases, like with Karl Anthony Towns or Joel Embiid. Both of them have spoken very seriously about their own cases. Embiid is on record as saying, I wasn't actually sure I was going to make it. Mm-hmm. It was that bad, at the worst of it. So, the Bulls were down to 8 players, which is the minimum. That's an unsafe number to try to play an NBA game with anyway. So you're already eyebrow raising. Yeah. And I think it's in the league's best interest, even though you've got 8 and you don't want to get anybody hurt in that situation. And you still probably, you want to treat the whole Bulls organization with latex gloves at this point and not put them on the court. Even if those 8 have tested negative, it's kind of wait and see mode, because so many of them have. Clearly it's, I don't want to say clearly, but whether it's in the building in some way or what's going on, this is, again, we're back to reality. We want to pretend, we'd like to believe that everything is past. Fortunately, deaths are way down, but numbers as far as positive cases, whether it's Omicron variant or not, have skyrocketed. Even in my adopted home state of Michigan here, we're at the highest hospitalization numbers, period, since the beginning. And again, it's thankful that the death rate is down and that there's a little more of a process to handle people when they come in. And a lot of these cases are not as serious as they were, but we're not out of this. Vaccination helps, obviously. It doesn't keep you from fully, it doesn't 100% reduce your risk of getting it. And these were all, as far as we know, vaccinated NBA players, and you've got that many on a team.
Yeah, 97% of the NBA right now is apparently vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like Ja Morant, who's already on the sideline. He's COVID protocols. The Hornets had 6 guys or something get into the protocols in the last 5 or 6 days. It still somehow came up with a win the other night. There's just so many guys that have been over the last couple of weeks. It's been, despite the fact it's a serious disease, it's been comical every time I look. Like every other Shams or Woj tweet is someone going into the health and safety protocols, and I wonder what is going on. I know the protocol's there for a reason, but why are there so many NBA players? You hear some about the NFL. You didn't hear a ton about Major League Baseball, basketball seems to be just having a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a minor crisis is not the right word. There's a rash of these, and it's sort of hard to figure out what's going on.
NBA testing has been as stringent as anybody's, so that may explain a little bit more over some of the other sports. Certainly for baseball, you're in less contact, so you're in a high contact sport. We are at the point in the pandemic where those who are vaccinated and even those who are not, everybody's kind of long ago hit that fatigue level where people are more willing to take a risk and are back in social situations. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, especially if you're vaccinated, especially if you're taking proper precautions or the risk and are willing to accept that risk for yourself and your loved ones. So I think social situations have increased a bunch. NBA players, we know when they're on the road or they've got a day off, they're in social situations quite a bit. That's always been the reputation.
Social situations. Okay. All right.
After
James Harden knows a thing or
hours.
two about some social situations. All right.
I mean, it's the nature of being 20 and rich,
Oh man, go like we did it, right? Just like I can relate. 'Cause when I
Yes.
was 20 and rich, I was all into the social situations. Like I was all over the social distancing, no, but social situations. Oh yeah. Some shady social situations. Sure, yeah.
Speak for yourself.
Some full contact social situations. I see what you're saying.
So it's in just speaking in generalities, I guess it seems like the ability to travel and get out was loosened after last year. We knew that the first season, the lost season, essentially, where everything was in the bubble, we knew that was going to be weird, and it was. We knew last season was going to be stringent, but on the way back. And now as things are relaxed, I think we're just testing what the limits are. Is the league going to go back to stringency because of lost games? That remains to be seen. It is really mind-boggling, but it's just a sign of the times of what we live in, that here we are in the third season, essentially, from COVID, and everybody would like to believe that we're back to normal and that this isn't going to be an issue, but it's not true. And it's the same way it is out in the real world.
Yeah, maybe. This feels like a bunch of dudes lately. And maybe it's just one of those ebbs and flows, and we're on the flow. Yeah, ebb is the bottom. So yeah. So I had to think of what words meant for a second. That's cool. Okay, well, thanks for the show, Joel. I appreciate it. I just wanted to talk about sick guys in the NBA. That's all.
Spreaker, Spotify, and iTunes. That's where to find us, everybody, with the audio only version.
No, I wanted to talk about a couple other things, including the fact that it looks like the Celtics are going to get back Jaylen Brown tonight, which would be a big boost for them against the Bucks. Jaylen Brown, they tried to bring him back earlier this season. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, it looks like they brought him back a little too soon. They shut him down for a little bit longer, but it looks like he is going to be back. It's interesting because the Celtics are in a very interesting position. I know I've used interesting twice, and I apologize for that. Because with Jaylen Brown, they outscore opponents by 19.6 points per game per 100 possessions. Without Jaylen Brown, as far as the starting five, Al Horford, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, and Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. Without the Jaylen Brown, and you just add in Dennis Schroeder, they get outscored by 18.6 points per game per 100 possessions, and that is defense. That is 100% defense. So I want to bring up the Jaylen Brown news, also to bring up this. Coming up on Wednesday, I believe it is the first date that they can trade Dennis Schroeder if they wanted to. That's why you're starting to hear some of these more trade talks show up, that if you sign a free agent, depending on when you sign, December 15th is the first date, you can actually trade those free agents away. So Jaylen Brown coming back, how big of a deal is that for you for Boston? How good they could be, because they're a game under 500 now. And B, Dennis Schroeder, is that a guy that's going to be a big trade piece, you think, for Boston that would make them better? Obviously, would imagine it would take who they get back, but is he a big enough piece that could lure somebody that would make Boston much better than what they are.
I don't think so, unless somebody is looking at Schroeder and saying he's an expiring contract. We're not sure if we're going to pay him, and we can unload somebody who might be a better player, but a little bit of a bigger deal onto somebody else. And you look around the league right now, there's not a lot of teams that are badly in need of point guard help, where Dennis Schroeder is going to be a huge upgrade, and they have a contract they would like to ditch. So, for example, like Denver, they could maybe use another body in there because they've been decimated by injuries at the guard spot. Jamal Murray, very high profile, but Austin Rivers was helpful. Michael Porter Jr. being out means that somebody like Will Barton is going to wind up playing more small forward minutes and fewer shooting guard minutes, which means somebody like Monte Morris or Bones Highland is probably going to play more shooting guard than point guard. So they're a body short. Could Schroeder be helpful there? Sure, but probably only about as helpful as he is in Boston. Schroeder is not a bad player, but we've seen that he's not a needle mover, right? It's been proven that he's not a needle mover.
Let me ask you about one specific scenario. The scenario that I've heard bandied about is because there's been re-up of this discussion of Ben Simmons since we're getting that first December 15th trade, trade sort of open window now. It's been reported before that Philadelphia is very interested in moving Ben Simmons to Boston, but their big concern, the big thing that they would love, is for Jaylen Brown to be a part of that package. Now, is that something Boston should listen to? Should you listen to a Dennis Schroeder, Jaylen Brown, figure out the matchups when it comes to contracts and such? Is Jaylen Brown a kind of guy that you would be willing to move on from for a Ben Simmons? Because it feels like Jason Tatum's the guy there, right? It feels like if you're going to have to lean on one guy to be the guy, it feels like it's going to be Jason Tatum. Is that fair?
It is.
Okay.
And as helpful, Marcus Smart has done a yeoman's job at the point guard spot, but is probably more of a shooting guard. And it's certainly a defensive first player. Jaylen Brown, as good of a defender as he is, which is very, very good, is also a better shooter than Ben Simmons. Simmons' ability to run the floor, pick up triple doubles, and be as good, if not maybe even better on his best nights than Jaylen Brown on the defensive end is intriguing. And I just look at Boston as they're around 500 again. In fact, I think they're perfectly 500 at the moment. They're up and down all over the place. They've tried coaching changes. They've tried minor role player adjustments. And I think you're getting to the point now where you have to look at the Tatum-Brown pairing and Smart involved in that too and go, all right, the mix with our core guys is not getting better. And we've already taken out all of the other variables, all of the other excuses. So it's time to think about it. That said, Ben Simmons has been the absolute definition of NBA head case over the last 6 months now. Like the textbook definition of one. And honestly, we have not had an NBA head case level like Ben Simmons since, maybe Kyrie Irving over the last couple of years, but I don't even know if I would say Kyrie has said a bunch of stuff that gave us news clippings and whatever. And the vaccine stuff, I mean, you can take your stand on that if you want and say that's being selfish, but ultimately he's got a little bit of ground if he truly is that committed to that, where I'll say it's head case, but principled head case. Ben Simmons is just upset that somebody said something that one time and has been willing to nuke his value, nuke his team, nuke his NBA future all over that. And it has been a while since somebody I hate to say it, especially because now he's played the mental health card, and it'll sound crass for me to say, but it's been a long time since somebody has flaked out like this much. And you think of like Larry Sanders when he abruptly retired from the Bucks, but that's been like almost 10 years that happened ago. So if I'm Boston, like, no, you can't tamper, but you got to be able to do your homework to understand whether Ben Simmons is legit in a mental state where he's going to be ready to come to a new team and hit that reset button where he's going to be able to come in and put the past in the past and actually get on the floor and play and be productive, because he's going to have a ton of questions that he's going to have to field. This is not going to go away anytime soon. He's going to be in the same position as Philadelphia. So does he come in focused and he wants revenge, or does he still come in worried only about Ben Simmons? Because remember, like, this is where it gets tricky for Boston. They tried an experience with a player who needed kid gloves, and that was Kyrie Irving, and it didn't work out very well. So of anybody recently, the Celtics should know about bringing in damaged goods and what that can do to you. Jaylen Brown is a good player, and he has not been a problem player. So even though the mix isn't working, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, listen, as much as I dislike Kyrie, these are completely different. Like Kyrie, at least until he took this stand on the vaccine, and he's been very open with his stand. Like, you may disagree with it, but he's sat there and said, "I'm not doing it," and he's still not playing because of it.
It's a hill he's willing to die on, and it's a
Yeah.
better hill than, oh, you hurt my feelings when you said that one thing that one time. You know?
It's completely different. And I wonder, like, as much as you can get from Ben Simmons, like, you think Boston's a much more agreeable market as far as the fan base? Like, if you start, like, not going up for a layup, like, in a big important game, like, I don't know. You may want the potential talent there. I don't know if you want.
I honestly think somewhere like Minnesota or Portland, who are two other teams that have been rumored, or somebody even like Houston, who is in the middle of a rebuild and might be able to package something together. Any of those places mentally are going to be better for Boston and better for Ben Simmons, vice versa, for exactly the reasons you just said.
So we talk a lot about some of the good teams out there and the good stories, but I'm interested in one that sort of keeps starting to bubble up even more and more. The fact that we still aren't seeing Zion and hearing even good things about Zion. Zion Williamson suffered a setback in his rehab. He was cleared for activities and basketball-related activities around Thanksgiving. Last week he suffered a setback, and now we're in the who knows. Joel, are we in a uh-oh phase for Zion Williamson and the Pelicans? Because this isn't smelling great.
This is an uh-oh phase. Because prior to this, there was the conditioning issues and the durability questions coming into the draft, but the talent was undeniable. Then he sits out an entire season, but we've been conditioned over the last 15 years to accept that. You think of Blake Griffin, you think of Joel Embiid. There's been a handful of other guys who had to sit out their rookie years because the team wanted to get them right, or they were in full tanking mode, Sixers, where they just, they were fine not playing said number one pick or top 3 pick, and they did that multiple times during the process. So we've been conditioned to think that's not as big of a red flag. And then he gets on the court and he plays phenomenally, and we're all ready to go. But the fact, that he's hurt again, that it's something else, that this is the second or third time that recovery has been way slower than anticipated. And now you have massive rumors, pun intended, about his weight floating around out there. We've got photos, we've got less than credible sources, but lots of less than credible sources all saying dude's up over 300 pounds. He's 330 pounds. Like, that could explain feet not healing the right way if your body is carrying way more weight than it's supposed to. We've heard about the Pelicans changing their dietitian and their nutritionist on the team, like all sorts of different things going on here. And this one is really tough, and it is scary because you think, and I don't want to use the bust word, but if a guy can't get healthy, that's where we're going to be. But a lot of times when busts have happened, they've been decent players, like pretty good, like Greg Oden, and they couldn't get healthy, you know, but Oden, when he played, even when he was really healthy for very short periods of time, looked like a good NBA player. He didn't look like a, you know, potential franchise changer, the thing that they hoped. Anthony Bennett, a guy who flamed out at number one, right away looked like he was in way over his head. You know, that's a classic missed pick bust, and that stinks because there was a lot of us that were hoping Anthony Bennett was decent. Zion, it's tough because it's the health thing, but when he has been on the floor, he looks franchise changing. He looks Hall of Famer. He looks like, you know, this dude is going to be a top 3-4 name for the rest of the decade, if not longer. But what's it going to take for a guy who has all of the tools, the nutrition coaches, the physical therapists, whatever, what's it going to take for a guy like that to get his weight down to where it's supposed to be and to be able to stay healthy? Some of that is luck. Some of that is not luck. And there's so much smoke around all of this. You know, even the Mountain Dew commercial with him and Zach LaVine. Zion looks like he had polished off 3 cases of Mountain Dew before they shot that. Like, it's
and how is a dude that size supposed to be able to lose weight when he can't use the legs and his feet, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's why the diet is so important in this case, is that, you know, like you can't be taking in nearly, listen, I'm no one to talk as far as, you know, losing weight and not being super fat and stuff. But I just think it's concerning to a very large degree, because the jokes were out there, and even real concern was out there when New Orleans was the team to pick up Zion to say, dude, we've heard at Duke, dude's okay eating, and he's a big dude already. You got to be careful. There's a lot of good food in New Orleans to be hanging out there. And he partook when he got there. Luckily, he was able to play for the most part, and then he got hurt while still partaking in the gumbo and such, and in the po' boys and whatever. And listen, the thing that's so disheartening about it is that, like you were alluding to, you see he's got it. Like, there's an it there. Like, there is an it there.
Undeniably, yeah.
That if he can just get on the floor, get back into shape, something really good can happen for him in that franchise. Like, something could. It's just connecting those dots and not being able to be close to it right now. It's got to be supremely frustrating for Pelicans fans.
It does, especially when you've seen twice now how good they are when he gets on the floor. And you've also seen twice now how bad they are when he's not. This is the 3rd season where they've dug themselves a massive hole to begin the year. Brandon Ingram has been a lone wolf, you know, who's a good player, probably best as a number 2 on a team. And I really like the fit with him and Zion together. They bring in Jonas Valanciunas this year, who has just been lighting it up. I mean, he's been stuffing the box score because somebody has to on that team.
Right.
They arguably got worse. They took a step back to give their youth a little bit more time to play. I'm not sure if that was the right move or not, especially where they're at right now. But if you're going to lose, you might as well lose. And they're definitely piling up the losses, and most of them are not pretty. But there is that sense that, like, look, this has happened before, and if Zion gets back, this is a team that all of a sudden rattles off 10 wins in their 12 games, you know, and jumps right back into fringe playoff contention. And as we've seen before, like, is right on that doorstep and either just barely misses or the NBA gift wraps them a reason to get them into the bubble. That's the frustrating part, I think, is not that, oh, we're all missing Zion. It's like, it's deja vu. It's, we've done this already. And if he gets himself healthy this year and gets on the court, they're going to pick up meaningless wins that don't help their draft position and probably is too little too late to get into the playoffs. And we've done it for 3 years of Zion's career with no playoff appearances, and the dude is that good.
Well, the bubble.
That's, yeah. No. Like, because they didn't use what they got in the bubble either, they didn't make anything out of that. So
no, but didn't they go on no, who was it that went undefeated in that?
That was Phoenix.
Phoenix went undefeated. That's right. Then okay. So here's the thing. Zion, you're fat. Chill out. Get relax. Lose some of that weight. I don't know, just go on a saline diet for like a week. Just get like we know
it can be done. We've seen how much weight like LeBron lost, before he came back in the skinny season. And there's been other guys who were big framed guys who lost the weight. Like, it absolutely can be done.
By the way, triple double for LeBron the other night. He doesn't seem to be dead yet.
Oh, I loved the quote from LeBron where it's about getting good sleep and he's feeling rested. It's like, brah, you're playing the Orlando Magic.
Hell yeah.
You could have done an all-nighter and still felt great.
Yeah, he probably would have
playing the Orlando Magic. Don't give me the sleep garbage.
You could have had some of these social situations and you still, would have probably gone like 14-7, right? So that's the minimum. So again, that Lakers team needs whatever little bit they can get right now. And like they're one of those teams.
In the grand scheme of you're right, they do, but in the grand scheme of things, they're sitting in 6th place in the West right now. They're 2 games above 500, and basically everybody's 500.
Well, I was gonna say this team is the prototypical 500 team, right? Like they literally can't get more than 2 or 3 games above 500 before they come back to 500, go back down below 500, come back up to 500. Like they haven't quite found their footing yet, and we're 28, 29 games into the season. Again, long way still to go in this, but
When I envisioned their slow start, and we all kind of talked about that at the beginning of the year, we said it's entirely possible that they come out and are 500 after 20 games. I pictured them being 10-10 or 11-11, something around that, and everybody panicking a little bit. There was also the possibility that they, went 13-2 to start their season or something like that, where it just clicked because of so much talent and other teams didn't have the chemistry. But yeah, now that we start getting into 28 games like you're talking about, it's not 11-11 and 13-13, 15-15, that sort of thing. Like, that becomes more concerning. But again, I don't see this Lakers team being one that just rattles off 17 wins straight, and pulling a Suns or a Warriors.
Not for a while. I feel like this is the team that, as long as they are 2, 3, 4 games above 500 going into the All-Star break, I mean, with as many old guys that are on this team, I think as long as you can find some chemistry with this team, as long as you don't keep the rumors around Frank Vogel getting fired going on consistently, as long as, Anthony Davis pretends at some point that he wants to play half the time
if he's upright.
Yeah, did you hear the Anthony Davis is the quote about him saying we need to play like underdogs?
I saw the headline of it. I didn't read the full.
That's basically all it was. We need to play like underdogs. It's yeah, sure. If that's what that helps, but there's
Los Angeles.
There's
just
30 Hall of Famers on the team. How many underdogs? How many people are going to feel like underdogs in the middle of December on that team? Right?
They honestly just need to win 6 out of every 10 games going forward, and they're going to be fine.
If they do that, yeah.
And be in the 4th or 5th seed. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs, regardless of what their matchup is. Granted, we thought that last year, and Phoenix just smoke rolled them after that.
But LeBron flipped the team.
Right. But there again, Anthony Davis not healthy for part of that. So there's
very true.
So keep everybody healthy, win just enough games that you're not in the play-in tournament.
And play defense again. That's what you did last year when you actually went on that streak to get back into the playoffs. That's what you're good at right now. And if you don't play a lick of defense, you're not capable right now at this point of putting up a whole bunch of points and outrunning people.
Here's the dirty little secret with some of that, though. You are down a Morris brother, you're down Schroeder, and you're down Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and all of those guys were helpful to you. As defenders, and you did not replace those guys who maybe weren't world beaters, but they were at least plus defenders. You did not replace really any of them. the guys that were all brought in are offensively helpful and maybe at most defensive washes, which normally is fine as long as you have a stopper or two on the team. But Avery Bradley is no longer that. Taylor Horton-Tucker is maybe supposed to be that guy, but I'm not sure he's that yet. And LeBron is not supposed to be that guy anymore. Anthony Davis, if he's going to be your best offensive player, stop asking him to be your best defensive player too. Like, you really got to pick one. LA has been able to score points. That's not been a problem. But all year when you watch them, people just get to their spots. They get to wherever they want to go against the Lakers defense. And if they miss a shot, it was on their own accord, not because the Lakers really did much to rearrange anything. And that's been a problem all year.
Did you see the graphic running around as far as like where they ranked as far as the amount of like movement they do on the court? Like they're near the bottom of the league as far as how much they run near the top of the league and how much percentage of time they spent walking.
Yeah, I mean, well, those little aluminum walkers don't move laterally very well. So
that's a good point. So Steph Curry said he regrets saying that he was going to go for 16 threes to break the record last week against Portland, I guess is who their next opponent was. You may have guessed he didn't get 16 threes. In fact, he still hasn't gotten the 16 threes. He's still 7 away from the record. Joel, tell me he gets it tonight in Indiana and he doesn't do it at Madison Square Garden tomorrow.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Tell me just get it over with at Madison Square, because I know it's more important to get it at Madison Square. I just don't need that. I don't need that in my life. The Knicks are already going to lose that game. I just don't need another record being set against that team in the Garden right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's probably likely he gets 6 against the Pacers, and that
first
three that he needs will be against the Knicks.
It'll be like off the tip, too.
I'm not wishing that on New York. It just seems plausible because
I bet he tries to set it from the logo, right? Off the tip from the logo is what he tries to do.
And then says, make me the new logo, right?
So where's he get, Indiana or New York?
I think he gets it in New York. I think he gets 6 against the Pacers just because he won't play enough to actually get enough attempts for it to be all 7. But yeah, I think he gets 6, and first 3 in the Garden will be the record.
Would have been nice if we got a couple more in Philly. Would have worked out pretty good to not have to have that in New York. By the way, if they pull him from that game if he gets like 6 in the first half and they pull him from the game, I'm gonna be pissed off. That's what
if they against the Pacers.
Yeah.
He gets pulled, okay.
Which is likely. Like there's a good chance that happens, and he has one of those 20-point quarters where you're like, okay, don't sit him. He's hot. Let him have it here. Let him do it in this historic. What is it? Seiko Fieldhouse. What is it now? I don't know. I don't know what it is. Okay, Joel. I don't want to make this all. This just be a couple of minutes. Can you just? Is there a chance the Knicks win again? I mean, I know they're only lost 3 in a row, but it feels like they've lost 100 in a row.
It does.
What is
3-7 in their last 10? So,
you've
won semi recently.
Let me. They beat the Spurs like a year ago. It feels like at this point, like whatever. But the other night, the Knicks were down. R.J. Barrett, Obi Toppin. Who else was they out? And they still didn't use Kemba. Like they were down like 4 players, I think, and still there was no spot for Kemba. Like it's a grudge at this point. Like it feels like it's a grudge. Like if you're down half the roster,
it always does with Tibbs,
and you can't get him in.
Feels like a grudge
just to fill out a roster. Like I don't like the way this is going. I don't want to fire Tibbs yet because I don't get to do that. But this does not feel like it's going in a very pleasant direction for New York. Again, long way to go, but we've kind of been trending toward this all season. So anything positive in the next 30 seconds you can give me before we move on? Just something good.
How do you feel about Quentin Grimes? Played 40 minutes and had 27 points and relatively shot the lights out. I mean, is he the next folk hero that the Knicks typically get when they're floundering a little bit? Also, I want to point out that Kevin Knox The second was given 29 minutes in that loss to the Bucks the other
Kevin
night.
Knox doesn't play. What? How in the Kevin Knox can't play? Okay, like
He had 18 points, not efficiently,
proven,
but he had 18 points.
He's been proven by multiple coaches. It just doesn't work with him there. How is he getting that? Okay, regardless.
How do you feel about Grimes?
You got hey, he's fine. I don't know. Like I don't know anything about Grimes, to be honest with you. Like I don't see him enough. It doesn't. Joel, I hate this team. I'm wearing their sweatshirt because I feel like I like to wear some of the Knicks after they win, but they don't win enough, especially right after we're going to the podcast, and they're not going to win tomorrow night against the 20-win
and it was
Warriors.
laundry day, and this is all you had left, right?
Listen,
it was either wear your Knicks shirt or come on shirtless.
It's not even cold enough outside in Alabama to wear the Knicks sweatshirt right now. That's how bad I just got to squeeze this in at some point.
We joked on our previous show on episode 86 that the Wolves and the Knicks had both fallen to their similar records, identical records, and here we are in the next episode, and the same holds true. So
the Knicks were favored against the Raptors, right? Like 4 nights ago, whatever it was. And I was like, hey, this might be kind of good, right? Something good's going to be happening. They were down 17 in the first quarter.
I am so impressed with what the Raptors have done to like very quietly not suck. Like they're a tough team, and there's talent in the first 6-7 spots, like legit talent, and the starting lineup I really low-key love.
I wanted to punch Gary Trent Jr. in the face during that game. Like I was like, no, what? Who are you? Who are you? What are you doing?
Gary Trent Jr. is the next Terrence Ross. And I mean, for better or worse, speaking of Terrence Ross, that is a guy who is a veteran on a bad team, and there's a few of them who at the trade deadline has to be moved. Please get Terrence Ross out of Orlando. Please get him onto a playoff team like Chicago that needs some punch off the bench. Terrence Ross doesn't play enough defense, so don't put him in New York, or Tibbs will find a reason to fall out of love with him immediately. Yeah. But no, there's those teams that are just going to need another body or two, and T. Ross is one of them. But yeah, back to the Raptors. Like, you look at the starting five. Fred VanVleet, he's tricky. He's just a really tricky, tough little point guard. Gary Trent, streaky as all get out, but when on fire, like Terrence Ross, it's really hard to stop him. OG Anunoby's had the best season of his career. Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, do they play the same position? Yeah, technically, and that's a little bit challenging, especially when you've got Precious Achiuwa and Chris Boucher, who are supposed to be getting minutes off the bench. I don't like a ton behind them. It's really developmental guys, and you're not sure whether they stick. But out of the first 5, 6, 7 spots, like, Toronto has more talent than they should in what was supposed to be a full-blown rebuild. And so to get back to your point, I don't think there's any shame, honestly, in the Knicks losing to the Raptors. That's a game that was going to be tougher than expected. Had the Knicks won that, you would say good game there. But the Raptors are not a pushover just because they've been, in some of the lower playoff seeds so far.
No, I just woke up, I saw the line, I was like, the Knicks are favored? What's going on here? And then I turned on the league pass and was like, why are you getting blown? Why is it 21-9 right now? What's going on? Like, what happened in this game?
Where's Andrea Bargnani when you need him? Speaking
okay.
of Knicks Raptors connections.
You got us. Okay, Joel, I'm gonna hang up on you. Okay, let me end the conversation with this. Someone that will not get a single vote or an award that will not get a single vote for a player on the New York Knicks is the NBA MVP. We're about a third of the way through the season, and this is just what I wanted to discuss with you. Who you think the MVP is right now? Because I think there are 4 great candidates right now, and you tell me if you want to add somebody else or if you think one of these dudes is it. I'm going to start with Kevin Durant. He just throws up a 50-piece in his most recent outing. He was great. He's been great all season, carrying that team offensively, which is wow, right? Like James Harden has not been the James Harden we'd expected, and there's been no Kyrie, and Kevin Durant just takes that team on his back and delivers every single night, at least as much as he can. Two is obviously Steph Curry. He's right up there with the scoring title in the Remember Us tour, and obviously the team's 21-5. They're really, really good, and he's really, really good on that team. Like we've mentioned, 7 threes away from breaking the record for most threes ever for Ray Allen. 3, there is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who averages, I think he's the best in points per minute right now in the NBA, which is an impressive statistic for him. He has been
and his Bucks, who got off to kind of a slow start.
They're
we're
hot now.
talking championship hangover or back into the second seed. They've won 8 out of their last 10.
Yeah, and the fourth one I would say is Nikola Jokic. Not to just sort of quietly mention the guy who is probably, won the thing award for crying out loud. But the dude, if you just look at his numbers, he's putting up stats every single night, and big stats too, no matter
because
what.
He has to. I mean, his health has really eroded in Denver.
He has been, just like Kevin Durant, like the workhorse of that team that has carried that team so far. So is there somebody else you want to put on the list? And yes, no, you can. And then tell me, who do you think right now it's been the most valuable player so far?
Yeah, I don't put anybody on the list strongly. I think if Chicago continued to play very, very well, you got some talk about Levine or DeRozan. Neither of them will ever get it.
DeRozan's been nuts. Yes.
Yeah, but you would at least give them a little tip of the cap for where they've gotten him. Same thing in Phoenix. Booker's hurt now. Chris Paul, the numbers aren't quite there, but both of those guys have been so insanely valuable to the team with the best record in the league, which typically goes pretty far in the MVP voting. Yeah. I do think it's probably a 2-horse race between Durant and Steph. Both have been MVP before. Both are in bounce back seasons in a big way. Although Durant was this good last year, which is why it feels like he probably deserves it. His team is in first place in the East, whereas the Warriors are just sitting half a game out in second place in the West. I think Steph has been more devastating, but Durant has been steadier with this. As good as Jokic has been, his team is in 8th place. And unless they make a turn, I mean, he's playing as well as he did last year when he was the MVP, but the wins aren't there, and you're not going to get a sympathy repeat vote no matter how good you are.
That's probably true.
If the wins aren't there. And with Giannis, it doesn't feel like the narrative is behind him this year. They won the finals last year. I could see Defensive Player of the Year going to Giannis, certainly first team All-NBA. It's possible that he continues to just play so well, and maybe if the Bucks pass the Nets, they're only a game and a half out. Maybe if we get close to the end of the season and Milwaukee has started to put some distance between Brooklyn, that would change the narrative a little bit here. But Durant does have hey, they were supposed to be good. He doesn't have the help he was supposed to have, and they're still first place. That goes a long ways. And Steph, I think, is very much the nostalgia, welcome back, remember us sort of thing. Like,
yeah, but okay, Durant's averaging 30 a game. Yeah. Like it's, you know how hard it is to get 30 a game. Like
Steph has more help. Steph very subtly, and it shouldn't really be under the radar anymore with the way the Warriors have played. Steph has a lot of help there, and a lot of guys who are playing well off of him, and now draw just enough attention to give Steph a little bit of breathing room too. Like they're legit deep, as we've talked about. With the Nets, it feels like a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of older players there, or guys who are a little more fringe, who are having to step up into roles that we didn't necessarily envision them having to play that part yet here, 27 games in for Brooklyn.
Kevin Durant is averaging, is this right? 20 shots a game and shooting 53%. Man, that's to do this deep into the season. And again, who cares? A lot of time to go. But if you're anywhere near that type of pace, it's stupid right now. It is stupid because offense has come back down a little bit in the league. Like there's not nearly as easy to get the points as was last year, the year before, and the probably 5, 7, 8 years before that. So it's getting a little closer to sort of what the old school types are sort of interested in, and he's still consistently doing. And teams know it. Like teams know he's the guy to keen in on, and he just he's just sinking buckets all the time.
And he is sneakily important to their defensive scheme because of his length and because he is a guy who tries on defense. Like Durant is almost always locked in and almost always participating. And he can be very, very good on defense when he steps up into that moment. We've seen that in playoff situations before. And I don't think he gets enough credit for being a true two-way star. He's not a defensive stopper the way that Giannis is or Kawhi Leonard or what have you, but Durant never really hurts you on the defensive end. Steph is a guy you got to cover for, although Steph competes there too and will pick up some steals. We've talked about James Harden in the past, and Harden plays defense when he feels like it and so forth, but Durant really is a two-way player, and it doesn't help Durant's street cred that he's played for 3 different teams because of the situation surrounding, leaving OKC and going to Golden State and then now going to Brooklyn. It doesn't help him in that reputation side of his career, but I do think it actually helps him in the MVP and overall career value. When you go, he's been on 3 very separate teams that were all elite because he was there. And he played at an MVP level while he was there, regardless of what was around him. Only LeBron can really say that, and I guess Kawhi Leonard too. But even Kawhi, has not been... We haven't seen those same results with the Clippers the way he had with Toronto and San Antonio. Some of that has been health related, obviously, but Durant has absolutely held up his end of the bargain as a generational superstar talent. And generational superstar talents, when they're having a season like this and the narrative is behind them, they do deserve the MVP.
Yeah, his OKC stuff was great. Him moving to an already championship team in Golden State. Got all the you're chasing a ring, but he got the ring, and he was
and he more than held up his end of the bargain. Yep. Durant never coasted when he was in Golden State ever.
Nope. He made that team so much better. And then obviously Brooklyn was an outpost for a while before he and obviously Kyrie teamed up to get there. But you've seen without James Harden and without Kyrie, in every variation of it, as long as Kevin Durant's on the court,
and
that team's got a shot.
Crew of supporting staff.
Yep.
There's some talent there, but it is a patchwork roster that was supposed to be really deep. And instead, that depth has been massively tested because of injury or just because of age. Guys that were supposed to step into big roles like Blake Griffin and Paul Millsap have not been as good as anticipated, not anywhere close.
No, that is true. I'd probably lean. What I'd also lean it too, because I think he's got 2 full points on number 2 for points per game. Just if you just want to go straight numbers, straight numbers. Nikola Jokic may be the best dude out there, just straight numbers. But if you add all of that, which voters do, right now it's probably Kevin Durant's award to lose.
And Jokic still, for as good as he is, and he does get clutch moments throughout a regular season. Jokic does not have the reputation as a closer. He has a reputation as a facilitator into closing stuff. But it's so much more helpful for Nikola Jokic to have Jamal Murray on the floor as the guy who actually takes the shot, but Jokic gets him the shot. Durant is going to get himself the shot and close it, and has been able to do that for so long that you ask anybody, I think regardless of the numbers, Durant is going to have the even more sterling reputation than Jokic does, and deservedly so. He's been doing it for longer, but he's done it in a different way where Jokic is so good, but it feels like it's so good making other people better and then filling in the gaps as he goes. Durant is just your 1A alpha superstar, not only of a team, but I think of the league the last couple of years, regardless of how good Giannis and Jokic have been. Durant has just delivered over and over and over.
And this is just a microcosm of it, but I think I told you about the game I watched with them in Chicago a few weeks ago where Brooklyn had the lead and then they just stopped scoring. And in the third quarter, going off the fourth, they went on this crazy 39-14 or something run. And the only guy that was scoring for the other team was Kevin Durant. Not, he had 10 of the 14. He had all the points. And when the game got out of reach, they had to finally pull him. It was like, look, all right, nobody else is scoring. Well, I mean, we killed you. Sorry, man. But no one else could score.
I know the age difference is massive. But you think about last year where LeBron was like, these shoulders were built to carry this team when Anthony Davis went down, and we all kind of rolled our eyes like, all right, old man, no disrespect to what you've done so far, but I don't think you're at that point in your career. Durant is legit one of the few players like Giannis, but even Giannis is better when he's got a shot maker like Chris Middleton, and when Drew Holiday's playing well, like Jokic, like Luka Doncic. I think outside of Steph Curry, Durant is the superstar in the league who single-handedly carries your entire offense and doesn't necessarily need other shot makers. It'd be really helpful if he had some, but very, very few. I mean, we're talking on one hand, the number of guys who night in and night out carry the entire offense, and it's not just making others around them better. And again, I'm not disrespecting Jokic. I'm not disrespecting Giannis. It's just slightly different what they do. Everybody's a unique player, and Durant is one of the most unique players in NBA history.
You got to imagine that dude just probably wants a nap every now and then. Just he's got to be tired.
He does look tired. He does.
He needs a couple days off.
The hair is starting to recede from everywhere with Durant. He's looking older, and he has had to carry a lot the last couple of years, not only on the court, but you think of the Kyrie nonsense and the Harden trade, and there's been so many different players there. It's been a lot of work, but this is what Durant wanted, right? Because people were ragging him for riding the coattails of the Warriors when he got there. And he didn't want to be in a small market like OKC. And granted, he had been there a long time and they had chased their titles and didn't get it. So he wanted to be that guy, and now he's got it. And I'm sure it's not always fun.
Ain't nobody confused who this team is. This is Kevin Durant's team. So I know James Harden's averaging 20 points a game right now. That's 2/3 of what Kevin Durant's doing. And James Harden isn't being asked to lead the team.
No, if James Harden were charitable, he would snip maybe the lower 3 inches of his beard and let Durant pace it up top. But.
Well, I think that's the great way to end the Chuck Persons episode, Mr. Joel C. Cortez. As someone who is a shaved head himself, Chuck Persons is. Maybe he could use the James Harden beard hair too. But until we can get that trade going, Joel, the show is over.
Who needs Rogaine or Hair Club for Men, right? You just got the James Harden beard experience.
Yeah.
Chuck Person episode in the books, everybody. Find us on YouTube and share, subscribe over there. We'd love to have you join the channel. Get the audio-only version where you probably are right now. Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. It's been a lot of fun. Arky, Shea, we're going to do this again next week, I hear, for episode 88.
Oh, yeah, I think
there's been a handful of players who have worn 88, by the way. I already know who I'm picking.
Okay, well, that's fine. Because I think this show is over. Just a quick shout out to Tom Thibodeau. Play Kemba, please. Just
now you want him to play Kemba?
Okay. I want.
See everybody.
When you're down on COVID, dudes, just play him.